All right, what's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in. It is the #1 podcast. I'm your host, Coach Jake. I hope you guys are doing great today. It is a very interesting day in history. I guess 55 years ago. Do you know what it is? Do you even know what today is? Everybody's celebrating this holiday. Do you even know what the holiday is? I'm just curious. It's Earth Day. All right, yay, Earth Day, right? So I'm not really like into this whole climate change thing. I'm a bit of a skeptic. I think that I'm a fan of a science that is agnostic. I'm a fan of a science that isn't settled. I'm a fan of a science that goes out, investigates, and finds out answers to questions and whatnot, right? So, and bear with me here. I'm just getting my notes ready. There we go. So I want to talk about the origins of today, right? And I want to talk about it from the perspective of something. There's a great book out there called Free Market Environmentalism, and I cannot remember the name of the author. It was written like 25 years ago or something. Great book, though. And the premise, which I find is very interesting, and what happens, how things get kind of co-opted by the man. And by the man, I mean the people who gravitate towards government and then use the non-consensual nature of government and the fact that the people don't stand up to it often enough. I'd like to talk about that. So what is free market environmentalism, right? Why is it important, right? So free market environmentalism is really this idea of the fact that you and I have to take responsibility for the environment in which we live in. Hopefully, no toxic chemicals, no crap being pumped into the soil, poisons like the glyphosates, right? And what do we do about that? Can we raise a stink? Can we file lawsuits? So, for example, I know recently that glyphosate, which I believe is a Monsanto product, forgive me if I'm wrong, but whomever makes the Roundup recently lost it's like billions and billions of dollars in this settlement. And as a result, there's a real risk that they face of having it pulled, which is fantastic for those of us. I'm a cancer survivor. I had cancer when I was 15. I had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I know that Roundup is tied to a form of lymphoma, not Hodgkin's, but lymphoma. So, I'd like to see a better environment. I know there was some interesting news today that the Trump administration, RFK Jr., as Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, banned petroleum-based food dyes. And these dyes, we know, testing has shown, are really, really bad. So, but let's talk about Earth Day for just a moment, the roots of Earth Day. Earth Day actually started out as a non-governmental grassroots movement 55 years ago today. Okay, so in the 60s, so the hippies started Earth Day, but it was very quickly co-opted and turned into government force, which I'm sorry to say it, man, non-consensual relationships are unethical. Do you disagree? I tend to think that is the litmus test for ethics. So I'm just curious, what is your perspective on that? Now, if that's true, enforcing the spirit of Earth Day, if we could even call it that, with these government edicts from the Environmental Protection Agency, it started out actually Earth Day's roots. It was created by a Republican. That's interesting. Now it's a battleground for environmental politics, right? So why are these free market solutions more powerful than they have ever been, right? So I think that it's interesting to talk about some of the things that have happened in the past with the environment, right? We know there's all kinds of toxic stuff, but do you know that the world's biggest polluter is not businesses, it's governments, it's the people that right? the Environmental Protection Agency, who watches the watchmen, right? Just curious. Like, and by the way, just give me a roll call. Where are you guys from? Hope you guys are doing good today. Um, Environmental risks now dominate the World Economic Forum's top 10 global risks for the decade. You know who Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, he's on record for saying, who are the biggest enemies of the World Economic Forum? It's libertarians. Do you know that libertarianism is, first of all, the philosophy that founded the United States? It's a limited government philosophy. It's an individual rights oriented philosophy. And why would Klaus Schwab say that that is the enemy? Well, that tells me that then he's declared war against freedom, that he's an avowed enemy of liberty. That should really alarm you, given the power and the influence he holds with people that have access to mass guns and jails. It should concern you, okay? These top-down mandates, regardless, very seldomly work. People work around them, cheat the system. It's hard to enforce. And then when they are enforced, oftentimes they're selectively enforced. Like, again, the governments get away with stuff, but we're held to a different standard. No bueno. So what are the core principles of free market environmentalism? Less regulation, okay? More property rights. So if I own the property and somebody dumps stuff, or if somebody starts spraying toxic chemicals, or there's smoke and it comes over and starts affecting my property, I can have a tort, meaning some sort of lawsuit to stop to create an easement of some sort or stop the pollution. Anyway, guys, look, I don't even know if you care about this ban on the food dyes. I'm super stoked for it. I think it's going to be really great to make sure that these kids aren't hopped up on medications and whatnot, because the dyes are causing brain damage and behavioral issues. If you look into this research, it's fascinating. What do you guys think? Anyway, I do believe, some people might try to argue that the libertarian position should be one that doesn't ban anything, and I disagree. I do feel that poisoning the earth with things that cause harm are congruent with property rights and with the right of property that we hold in our own body to not be invaded by these chemicals. Is it really consensual if I eat some food and it's hidden in the ingredients in smallest print possible that it's got these dyes or toxins or corn syrup or these things that we know, seed oils, these things we know that cause problems? In the case of me going out to a restaurant, I love In-N-Out Burger. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they're great. I love In-N-Out Burger. If I go to In-N-Out Burger and I order fries, which I don't, and they're fried in the seed oil, where does it say that? That's a toxin. It's poison. It doesn't work well with my body, right? Now, beef tallow, yeah. So Steak and Shake or Shake and Steak or whatever their name is, they fry their stuff with beef tallow now. They're French fries. But they're marketing that because that's free market. That's saying, hey, man, I would rather go there than In-N-Out Burger right now, even though I love In-N-Out Burger. Anyway, guys, I'd love to get your perspective on this. Do you think that environmentalism and free markets can work together? Is it about ill-defined property rights? How do we know that that they work together well? Sometimes I think people feel like they're diametrically opposed, and I don't. The thing is the challenge with libertarianism is I think some people go into anarchism, and I'm guilty. I was guilty of this as well. I don't think anarchism is really, really tenable, because you do need to have some sort of final say besides violence. that is, you've got to outsource the violence. You've got to create a third party for violence, and that is the government. You need to minimize it so it's not just used like in England. If I post a meme that goes against the prevailing cultural zeitgeist, manufactured or otherwise, right? Like you go to jail if you violate free speech. In the UK, you resist, you're going to be met with violence. I think that's giving too much violence to the state, and this is a problem, right? Is that encroachment? If we don't have any, though, then it just becomes like a warlord situation where whomever has the most power. Ultimately, you're at the whim of whomever has the most power, and this is why the founders sought to decentralize violence by allowing, power to the people, allowing us to defend ourselves with guns. The Second Amendment. That was a brilliant solution. The First Amendment and Second Amendment are sacrosanct, brilliant solutions, right? So now what should happen if you were, say, I have a property and I'm creating my own crops and it's watered by a creek, that creek passes through your property before it hits mine, and you dump glyphosate, or you're squirting Roundup and it seeps into the ground and it gets picked up by the water, and now there's all this toxins on the food that I eat. Again, can we enforce that property right? I'm curious. I'm not necessarily saying I have the answers. I'm saying, how would we go about that? All right. So just curious, guys. I am a fan of entrepreneurship. I think there's ways around this. I think there's ways we could solve these problems. I do think that if somebody is poisoning all their neighbors, that they are going to be held liable, because your poisoning of the water now affects something coming into my property that, had you not done that, I would not have the problem. I think that's an easy thing for a third party to adjudicate. I don't know, man. Anyway, listen, I don't pretend to have all the answers. I just wanted to come in, have a conversation, stir up some thought, have us think about it today on this Earth Day. And again, I'm not like convinced of climate change, but I am convinced that pollution and poison and toxins are bad for us. I think that if we move the conversation from the nonsense of climate change, because of course it changes. We could see that. It's gone up and down for millions of years. We had ice ages before there was industrialization. So I think that's kind of a dumb argument, and it's usually some sort of pretense for a carbon tax, a tax just for you being alive. I find that is, taxation is slavery. I don't like the meme that taxation is theft, because I don't think it's accurate. It is, but I think it's more accurate to say it's slavery. I'm with Robert Nozick on that. You can find on YouTube, type in The Tale of a Slave, Robert Nozick, Nozick. Fascinating stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to jump off here. I didn't get too many people jumping on today, but I didn't talk wrestling, so that might be part of why. Anyway, I hope you guys are